Hi, this is Shannon Port. Welcome to this Google Hangout. Today is October 26th, 2015. And I'm making this video today to discuss two events that are taking place this week that happen to be powerful portals for our consciousness and the expansion of our consciousness on Earth at this time. And so those events are the Taurus supermoon taking place within 24 hours, the Taurus supermoon happening on October 27th, 2015, and then the ancient Celtic holiday that we celebrate on October 31st called Samhain or Samhain. It's spelled Samhain. So it looks like Samhain. It's pronounced Samhain. And so I'm honored to be here today to take a look at these two events, which are very related to one another, and to discuss them and look at them from an archetypal perspective. And we'll just, so the way I work in the videos is I usually have about 2 or 3 things that I plan to say, but then I sit down before the video and I do a little bit of writing, and I just let the archetypes talk to me and kind of give the wisdom that they would like to be shared through this platform. And so we'll just let it unfold in a very organic way. I'll start by saying that if you're new to the archetypes, on this channel, on the Shannon Port channel, there are 22 individual podcasts. They're each an hour long, and they address the 22 archetypes. I call them the secret archetypes of divine consciousness, and they are the archetypes of the major arcana. And so please check out the Shannon Port channel and listen to those archetypes if you find them interesting and would like to maybe pick out some of the archetypes that we talk about today and learn a little bit more. And so today, first we will we'll take a look at the Taurus supermoon, the Taurus full moon that's happening tomorrow. It's happening within 24 hours of this video being shared live. And by the way, these energies are really powerful. So if you see the video a little bit into the future, the energies that are happening will be active well into the future, at least for 6 months, especially this joining of this particular Taurus moon and the Celtic holiday Samhain. So we're going to look at the axis of Scorpio and Taurus. And so every sign on the wheel in the zodiac has its mirror. It has its polar opposite. Taurus and Scorpio mirror each other. And so when the moon is full in Taurus, we have this great big moon mirror holding up a mirror to the sun in Scorpio. And so it's the full moon is a portal. And if you're interested in spirituality and interested in accessing some of these very synchronized moments in space and time, the full moon is one of these events where, like Samhain, the veil becomes very thin. The veil between the light and the dark, the veil between what we can see with our eyes and our senses and what is the unseen. The veil between, and this is big, the veil between the above and the below is the most thin at the exact moment of the full moon. And so the full moon is a portal every month. It's an opportunity for us to connect with the higher, with the beings who have already raised their body and raised their consciousness. And especially at this time when there's been limited contact for the collective with beings of this nature. due to some of the interference that has been caused with it within the physical world, and we're going to talk about that. But the full moon, if you know how to access it, is a portal where you can make contact by going within to the inner plane and opening it from within, and make contact with those beings who are working to help humanity at this time, at this very important time in our evolution and in our awakening. So this Taurus supermoon is happening tomorrow, and it is happening at 3 degrees Taurus. So we're going to look at the numbers. We're going to look at the archetypes of both Scorpio and Taurus, but 3 degrees. So just already we know that the number 3 in the sacred tarot is the Empress. So 3, all through the law of correspondence, everything that is represented by the number 3 is active, because the full moon is mirroring on that exact degree, 3 degrees Taurus. Venus is the ruler of the Empress. Venus, the Empress, is her archetype. It represents the heart. It represents the creative imagination. It represents feelings and the feeling force and the feeling nature of the heart, and of the power of divine love and the power of spirit working through nature. And so the archetype key 3 is the ruler of Taurus. So Taurus is ruled by Venus. And so already we can see the correspondence that Venus is coming in really strong for this full moon. It's at her degree. And also within the past 24 hours, we had Venus conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Virgo. So Venus and Jupiter, when they get together, Jupiter expands the power of Venus and really gives the spiritual power of expansion and love. It's like putting it under, it's like putting the sun, something under a magnifying glass with the sun shining through it. It creates a lot of heat and a lot of energy. And so through this Jupiter conjunction of Venus, we have the powers of Venus already magnified, and it's happening within the portal of the full moon, so those energies are active. All right. So Venus and Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Taurus is the mirror to Scorpio, and Taurus is the natural world. Taurus represents the goddess in her earth form. Taurus represents the 5 senses. It starts in the 5th month, or it mostly falls in the 5th month, which is May. Taurus represents the 5 senses, sensuality, sexuality in its physical form and its physical expression. And Taurus is ruled by the archetype in the sacred tarot is the Hierophant, key 5. And you see by the law of correspondence that Taurus is also taking place in May, the 5th month. So the Hierophant, which is the inner teacher, is Taurus in the divine archetypes for a very powerful reason. Our 5 senses are the portal and the gateway to our inner teacher. We have not understood on the collective level how to use our senses to bring us into the present moment and to access more awareness, more consciousness, and more present. But when we are truly using the gift of the 5 senses, we have 5 digits on each hand, we are able to connect with our inner teacher, and our inner teacher is our spirit within nature. Taurus represents the goddess and the goddess fire that lights up nature. So spirit in nature is happening in the archetype of Taurus and in Taurus. So other things that correspond to the 5 are the 5 senses, The 5, the pentagram, is very corresponds to Venus. Venus traces through her transits a pentagram in the sky. The pentagram is spirit. The pentagram with the tip pointing up represents spirit ascending, and it represents spirit governing matter and ruling over matter. 5 is Venus, and so 5 is also the 5th chakra, the throat chakra, which represents the throat and the power of the word. If you know the zodiac signs, Taurus rules the throat, and Taurus rules the power of speaking and singing and projecting the divine sacred fire of spirit into the physical world. And so what we're really getting at here is that spirit and nature are so divinely working together in the earth sign of Taurus. Taurus is the earth, but it's the fire of the goddess working through nature. And when our consciousness is awake and tuned in, we can use nature to have a new kind of vision where we see spirit in matter in not only everything, but every person. And once we can see it, we can be it. We already are it, but in order to really embody it and really be it, we have to be able to see it. And that's what this is all about. That's what this full moon is all about. So we've got 5. We've got the archetype 5, the Hierophant, which is Taurus. We've got the full moon happening at the 3rd degree. 3 is the Empress, Venus, in the sacred tarot. Remember, if you want to learn the archetypes, you can find them on the channel, and you can go through and listen to each call and get a lot of information on them. Now we have we'll take a look at Scorpio. Also, 5 is the inner teacher. It's the Hierophant. In the esoteric teachings of the sacred tarot. So there's the exoteric teachings, but in the work I do, I work with the esoteric teachings of the meaning of these archetypes and how they can lead us to information about ourselves. There's only one light, and there's only one power, and there's only one force. There's only one truth, but the archetypes are the rays of light as they split off into individual rays of consciousness to make up the whole. And so the individual archetypes within themselves are the whole, and yet they tell us something about ourselves when they show up. And they're like a roadmap. When we know how to connect with them in a certain way, they enlighten the path and they make it really fun. And that's why we're here. We're here to have fun, to learn and to grow, and to understand this this union of the above and the below, of spirit and nature, of fire and water, of the moon and the sun. So we'll look at Scorpio. Scorpio. The sun is in Scorpio, and Samhain takes place in Scorpio. The celebration of the dead and the dark, and the Samhain represents the journey of the soul into the dark and into the hidden dark realms of human consciousness, the subconsciousness, and where we can uncover our power as it has been buried within us in the earth, in our own body. Our power and our destiny have been buried within our subconscious mind. And Scorpio and Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, are pointing us in that direction and teaching us about power and about how we can either be used by the dark that exists within us, the accumulation of the dark patterns that we've accumulated over many, many cycles of incarnating, of death and rebirth, on the wheel. We've accumulated dark patterns and dark understandings, and we've mated with the dark in a way that's kept us here. And now we are, when we learn how to use the archetypal energy of Scorpio, we become fearless, and we decide that it's time to uncover the dark that is buried within us that can be transmuted and used as raw power. And so Scorpio, both Taurus and Scorpio, sexuality is highlighted in both of these archetypes. So I just want to say that. So sexuality is going to come into this discussion. Sexuality is the sensuality of Taurus, the goddess, and all of the delights and pleasures of sexuality and the physical world and the tastes and the delights of the five senses. However, those senses have to be aligned with truth and with love and with wisdom in order for that kind of sexuality to really give us divine pleasure. Otherwise, it's a passing pleasure that comes and goes and leaves us wanting more. It can create addictions because it's not satisfying unless it's truly, eventually, at first it might be satisfying, but after we go through it over and over again, eventually we need to connect our sexuality and our expression in the physical world with our true power that's found in Scorpio. So we'll talk a little bit about Scorpio, and then we'll talk about the meaning of this moon mirror, this Taurus supermoon happening within 24 hours. So Taurus is the archetype, and this is big, this is really big, the archetype in the sacred tarot of Scorpio. Scorpio is death. It's key 13. Make sure to listen to that that key if you want to know more, because there's so much to say, and I'm going to keep this video kind of shorter than usual. 13 represents death, and it's been feared, that we've been programmed to believe that that number is to be feared, and that number is haunted, and that number is bad luck. We've been programmed to believe the most powerful number, the number of the true divine feminine, and the secrets of life and death is an undesirable number, and it can be. Because when we're operating in the third density paradigm, 13 and death becomes a very, a real thing and a somber thing that brings about the end of pleasure, the end of love, the end of the human vehicle, the end of things where we feel that there's loss. And so in that paradigm, death can represent tragedy, but understanding the true meaning and portal of the number 13 gives us so much information and access to our own power. So 13 is the archetype Scorpio. In the archetypes, every zodiac sign has its archetype. Scorpio 13. Some of the correspondences with 13 are the Christ force, the Christic force, and the power of the word that comes through that light. 13 represents the sun behind the sun. And so it represents the dark light that comes through the sun, but that is born through the dark. And so we have the dark above and we have the dark below. We have the light above and we have the light below. And we're going to bring this all together, talking about this full moon. The dark solar forces have been buried within our subconscious, which is represented by Scorpio, the seed. The Hebrew letter for the archetype death is nun. Nun means fish. It means the potency and the seed of generation, of the life force, of the empress. So 13 is 3 working through the 1, because we take that number and the second digit is working through the first. We have the Empress working through the power of focus, the magician. The archetype Scorpio is the potency in the seed that's buried in the dark. We are that seed. And it represents sexuality because it represents the sperm and the ovum and the act of sexuality, and how sexuality and merging these two seeds creates life as well as death. And there's a lot in there. that you can meditate on, but the archetype death will open up a lot of wisdom within. It's the archetype of the divine feminine. We also have the number 31, which is significant because we'll be looking at Samhain, which happens on October 31st, no coincidence, which is the reverse of 13. They're both highly, highly resonant with the divine feminine. 13-1-3, 31-3-1 are both, 31 is another octave of the number 13, and they're both hugely important at this time on Earth. So we have Scorpio, and let me just make sure that I've covered some of those, all of these things that I meant to. All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and I'll get to some of this. So we have Scorpio, the sun in Scorpio, and so we're mirroring the consciousness of the collective Scorpio, the collective of what's hidden in the subconscious realm of humanity, and the collective human consciousness is being mirrored through this beautiful full supermoon in Taurus. Taurus is showing us through the physical world what we have created within ourselves. The physical world is always a mirror of what's inside of us. And we're going to look at what's happening on Earth at this time, some of the, what's happening on the world stage as a reflection of some of the darker energies being mirrored in nature and in the world. But it's so beautiful because on this axis of Taurus and Scorpio, we have the sun in Scorpio and the moon happening at full moon happening at 3 degrees Taurus. They're completely opposing each other. They're in total perfect divine polarity with one another, mating. What we're seeing on the Earth right now is a reflection of what's in the underbelly. So Scorpio not only represents the solar force and the goodness that's buried within us that needs to be extracted and uncovered, but it represents the what's been unchecked and unseen. And that's why, which brings me to, which I forgot to announce, the title of the video is Transmuting the Shadow Self. I forgot to say that at the beginning of this video, but what these two energies are truly about is transmuting the shadow self. We have the full moon, supermoon in Taurus, Samhain happening on Halloween, and we have the dark of our human consciousness, the underbelly, which has not been fully owned and seen and healed and cleared, being mirrored on the Earth. This supermoon is showing us loud and clear what's happening on this Earth right now. I wrote down 3 of the major things that are happening, just to hold them in the space while we talk about it. We have the refugee crisis happening in Europe. I talked about it in the last video I did, which was back for the total lunar eclipse that happened in Libra at the end of September. But now we already were seeing signs of that, and even before that. But we have a refugee crisis happening in Europe that is unlike anything we've seen since World War II. This represents, through the archetypal energy, a bursting of the seams of the subconscious mind and of the underbelly. The reason it's connected to that is because what's happening in Syria is a distortion and an attempt to restrict and prevent the goddess energy on this planet from being fully absorbed into the consciousness of human beings. We have to absorb the consciousness. It's here, but the consciousness of humanity needs to absorb it. There is an attempt to stifle that and to block that, which is a futile attempt. It can't. What it's doing is it's causing, through both the dark and the light forces, this massive bursting at the seams of human beings to have to flee the area and seek refuge in many countries in Europe. And the way it's being dealt with is a reflection right now of where we're at. And so we're praying and sending that situation a lot of light and a lot of positive energy. We have the power to do that, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. We have the refugee crisis in Europe, human beings, bodies, and emotions, and the five senses needing to be fed, needing clothing, needing to be loved. That's the five senses. And so those five senses are bursting into the world, looking for shelter, looking for food, looking for love. We have the financial crisis and the materialism on our planet, which is connected to the internet and connected to the ways that the darker forces are using artificial intelligence right now to plug in to our unconsciousness, that's Scorpio, and manipulate it and use it. So we're seeing how it's being used because this full moon right now, there's a lot of energies going on at the full moon. And I jotted them down, but I think I can remember all of them. Uranus is opposing Mercury. Neptune is opposite Venus and Jupiter. We also have Neptune squaring Saturn. We still have the Uranus-Pluto square happening as well. So this just shows you that there's a lot of friction, and there's a lot of energy calling for change and calling for us to, the rub in the world is creating energy for us to wake up and see in this Taurus full moon mirror. It's a super moon, it's close to the earth. And so the goddess is saying, look at me, I'm gonna mirror to you what is in human consciousness, but she's also mirroring the divine, always. Venus is also mirroring the Christic force and spirit through her lover Scorpio, which is also ruled by Mars. The old ruler, the ancient ruler of Scorpio is Mars. So it's really Venus. This is about Venus and Mars. Pluto is now holding that court in Scorpio, but Pluto represents the abyss and the dark underworld that we pass through and that we're passing through right now, to extract the solar force. All right, we also have the dark control through technology, and we just talked about it in those two previous things that we talked about, both the crisis in Europe, both the financial crisis, materialism, and the misuse of sexuality. All of those things, all of them are tied together. Both materialism, the internet is misused through our misuse of sexuality. That's one of the darkest ways the internet is used to access that and spread it at a lightning speed. And also this is the shadow of the internet, because obviously it's an amazing platform for us to reach out to each other. But the other thing is it taps into our unconscious darker sexual side, and through all kinds of things, which I talk about a lot, I won't go into here. It's being used, that artificial intelligence is being used to link up to the misuse of sexuality, unconscious sexuality, sexuality that is split off from wisdom and love. It's being harnessed. It's unconscious use of our God force. It's that kind of sexuality. Those are all related to Pluto and Scorpio needing to heal and be mirrored so that we can heal it. And then we have the material, the world, and our complete obsession with the material, with material things. Material things are beautiful, and they're an expression of the goddess. But we have such a drastic space between the haves and the have-nots. Poverty also, the crisis points out, it falls under poverty, because when we don't have food, it's also showing there's so much poverty on this planet right now. And that's part of that sensual, being able to be fed on this planet, and in the Taurus energy, being able to receive food, again, love and shelter, is being magnified under this full moon. So we'll just take a deep breath in and talk about these archetypes a little bit more. 13 in the archetypes is Scorpio. 5 is the Hierophant. Taurus is saying, wake up. There's many people are awake already, but learn how to use your own dark power. Learn how the dark power is about the solar force is buried within the seed. Noon is buried within the dark. When we learn how to journey in and hold balance, the solar force rises. I jotted this down and I want to say it. Right now we have the light. We have the light of the above getting ready to merge with the light from the below. The hidden seed in the earth represents the solar force, the power that's within us. It's within the tabernacle of our heart. It's Goddess is within us. And our inner teacher, our Hierophant, Key 5, lets us know the voice of that light. That light connects us to the light of the great central sun and the galactic womb, the heart of our mother. The heart of our mother holds the pleroma and the great light that is sending its rays into our atmosphere right now. It's been happening, and it's happening. In order to absorb these rays and really take them in, we have to have the vessel that is ready to merge the light in the heart. That means getting some of our affairs in order. We have to be able to, it doesn't matter how spiritual we are, we have to be able to transmute this physical form and make it a body of light. We make it prepared to become the body of light. I talk a lot about the body of light in my work, and I'm getting ready to go into that much deeper. But that is what we're doing. The light and the light meet, and when they meet, we have the joining of the above and the below, and the true cosmic union of the sacred union of spirit and matter. So we've got this happening. Taurus and Scorpio are really showing us through their access at this full moon how to see what's out there. We're going to get to, we're already seeing, because the moon is mirroring what we've created. And we have to be able to look at it and to, I'm going to talk about the inner alchemy. I'm going to give that a few minutes. These calls always end up longer than I planned them to be, but we'll get to the inner alchemy and talk about how to hold that light. I just want to talk about Samhain a little bit, and then we'll go back to the inner alchemy of what we can actually do, how we can take part in this and use the portal of this full moon. We're meant to use every month we have a full moon. It's when the veil is thin, just like in Samhain. The veil is thin. At the moment of the full moon, we can access the beings that are only a part of our own higher consciousness, the ascended host and the angelic host. All right. I think we're good on this moon mirror. The numbers are very powerful, you know, and I want to say this, I'm teaching a class right now on the archetypes. It's not that we worship or use numbers and archetypes to tell our future or to be superstitious or to, we have to learn how to see them from our soul. Symbols, numbers, and archetypes are the language of the soul. So we have to see them from the heart and the heart's wisdom. If we get obsessive about them through the mind and through the ego, we can become discordant, even in using the archetypes and the numbers and numerology and all of that. So I always want to say that the heart is the ruler, the I am is the one power that breaks into many rays. But these archetypes, when we approach them with wisdom from the heart, can really, really help the process of alchemy. We don't have to have them, but they can be they can make it really fun and really creative. And it's about creativity. So we have the shadow self needing to be cleared, and we're going to talk about that right after this. So Samhain is happening on October 31st, and Samhain is an ancient Celtic holiday. It's one of the four. We have Imbolc, Beltane, Luganza, and Samhain. We also have the equinoxes and the solstices that represent points of initiation. We are orbiting the sun, and the path of the sun teaches us, it shows us it's the wheel of initiation. If we want to get off the wheel of death and rebirth in this density and ascend on the spiral of ascension, we have to tune in to the path of the sun. And that's why we look at these holy days. We've always known from the inner plane that at these moments, it's a point of initiation if we're able to connect our heart and soul with the consciousness of the sun. So Samhain is a holiday that represents going into the dark, and it's often celebrated on the moon that falls closest. So whether it's a new moon or a full moon, we have the full moon in Taurus falling within, let's see, it's about 4 or 5 days. They're that close together, and so the full moon is really resonant with that holiday, Samhain, and they both represent the veil being thin, and they represent access. Access. We can travel to the above and the below within ourselves if we know how to do it. And so let me see if there's anything else to say about Samhain. Oh, yes. I wanted to say this. I don't want to focus too much on it in this call, but the dark, the dark forces know how to use these points as well, because that veil is thin. A lot of people that are unconscious can be hooked at that time. So if we're unconscious for these events, those agendas on the planet that would prefer that humanity stay asleep and stay being a resource for all of our divine power as we give it unconsciously, would like to see human beings not aware of the power that's buried within us. So they are trying to access the dark side through unconscious individuals. So around these times, around this full moon, around Samhain, those who are unconscious are really susceptible to being programmed and hooked by the darker energies that know how to use these portals. And so we don't have to worry about that as long as we're connected to love and balance. And we're going to talk about that with the inner alchemy, but love and balance, divine love makes us, we're not resonant with that. If we're not resonant with the dark, it has no way to hook us. It can attack us all at once, but it cannot hook us. And we won't absorb the attack. We'll know it's there, but we won't absorb it. All right, so we're going to look at the inner alchemy. And that being said, we know that a lot of the dark rituals are done on Halloween and on that night before All Souls Day. And so it's a powerful time to send out light, and to send out light through the heart, through the goddess energy of divine love. Send it out to the planet on those days, because we're never fighting directly, but we're countering and we don't take it on head on. We take it on from the center and emanate it out. All creation is under the dominion of the center root light of the light. And so when we go into the center, into the womb of the goddess and the heart of the goddess, and we send out divine love from that place, we are able to reach the hearts of so many individuals. And that's why being resonant with this light and the goddess light that's coming in right now is huge. And we're going to do a call or a podcast just about that. But I just wanted to mention that for the meditation. So the inner alchemy, we'll talk a little bit about the inner alchemy. Try to keep this under an hour. I was aiming for a half hour. Didn't work out this time. We're going to look at the inner alchemy and how we can transform, because 13 Scorpio is transformation. It's life and death. There is no death. Death is, the way we perceive death is not the truth. There's only life. Everything just recycles and regenerates. And that's the true meaning. The goddess, the empress, knows the secrets of death. 13 represents our free will. It represents the Christic force. It represents the galactic core. It represents the solar feminine. It represents the word, the light word, the Christic force word. So we shall not fear the number 13. We just want to have greater wisdom and understanding of it. The inner alchemy. I really, really simplified this. This is how it was brought in through the archetypes. Something that we need to really grow up and embrace right now in our work, in our divine work, in our soul's path, in our spiritual work. We haven't embraced it enough. And it is our power. It is the true meaning of why we are here, to connect with this fully. We're always connected with it, but we need to consciously connect with it. And it comes through feeling. The feeling force, I talk about that a lot, is the goddess. The ability to feel and know very intimately divine love. Many souls who are spreaders of truth and who have access channels to the wisdom from other times, or who are able to receive a clear channel, are still working to awaken the feeling force within the heart. And it is the final step in our alchemy, is to be able to feel like the goddess feels. And it is a love so profound and so all-encompassing that all other feelings feed into that. And when we know divine love, we can alchemize hate, jealousy, envy, competition, judgment, abuse, exploitation, these kind of feelings. Those last two are more actions, but the feelings come from fear. And it is true that in polarity, we are allowed to experience the whole spectrum of feelings. However, if we want to ascend the spiral, we have to know how to transmute, and that's what this work is about. Transmute the shadow and make it an ascending power. Otherwise, we just keep descending, and we help others descend around us. And there's many of us here that know we're on the path of light, and we fall back now and then, and that's part of the work. It's part of the lessons that we learn as well. But we are here to connect with divine love. And that word is used a lot, but it's much more than the word. It is a feeling that erases all negativity. It erases the past. It pulls the present, the future into the present. Divine love is the now moment. And it is the goddess. It is her heart. And it's easy to talk about it, but actually feeling that feeling is the true nectar of this path. Once we can feel it, we are transformed. And the true meaning of key 13 and of death is feeling. And that's why 3, the Empress, is the feeling. It's the heart, it's love. Nature is our feeling mirrored back to us. Scorpio is teaching us the depths of that feeling. We have to clear out the hate and the rage that have stored up and become discordant and dysfunctional in order to know the power of divine love. So we're meant to look at it, and this is what we're going to talk about in these next few minutes. This feeling of divine love. And so the first stage of alchemy, this is very simplified, and one day we'll do a video that goes more, articulates and refines it even more so. But for us to simplify it, the first step in alchemy is recognizing the self. And for a lot of human beings, that means recognizing the human personality. You have to understand that there's a me first. You have to understand the personality and get a little bit selfish first. And that's why we see people all over saying, no, me, I'm good. It's okay to love me. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have hate and rage. It is. We have to honor that we are a personality and an individuation that needs to be recognized. So first we recognize that there is a me, and that's the egoic level, the personality. But then beyond that, the next step is that there's a self. The self is not the me, the self is the we, but we each have a ray of light of that self within our heart. Once we know it's there and we know there's an inner world, we begin our alchemy. Once we know that, the doors swing open and we can never ever go back. It's hard to go back. We can fight to go back and be like, no, I don't want to see the truth. But we're pretty much, once we come to that realization that there's a self and a personality and that they need to be merged, the above and the below are merging, the within and the without are merging. And that gives us some clues, that symbol. We are able to begin to focus and have awareness of ourself and of how we act. Once that awareness kicks in, the light of awareness is shining through. So we won't be perfect at first, but we will begin to notice ourselves. And so with that can come some self-judgment. We might begin to judge ourselves like, I always do this. I always mess up here. I always speak harshly or abrasively in this situation. I always get really defensive in this situation. I get so defensive, I topple everything down. I always lose my cool and lose my center in this situation. Or I always feel addiction and over sensual identification in these situations. These are all patterns, and they're patterns that have been stored within us. And so we are now, with this awareness of the self and the personality and how they are merging, we get the opportunity to watch ourselves and witness. We become the witness. This is alchemy. And we witness that through our mirror. That's why this Taurus full moon, our mirror is in nature. Our mirror is in our love and our lovers, those who we love, our partner, our divine relationship partner, our family, our friends, our community are the mirror of our own patterns. We get to see our own discord mirrored to us. A lot of people mistake that the mirror of our own discordant activity as being attacks from the dark forces. It's happening a lot, where a lot of people believe they're being attacked in situations where they're clearing their own inner mirror. There are attacks happening. That's a whole nother video. We'll talk a little bit about it. There are, when you hold great light, there is absolutely, the forces are attracted to you. The dark always wants to come to the light. So we do experience attacks. However, remember, unless you're resonant, unless there's a resonant link within you, you will not absorb the, you won't absorb the attack. It's like the story of the Buddha telling the monk that if somebody gives you something that is not love or not kindness, somebody tries to give you something through an emotion, through a physical attack, through any kind of exchange of energy or physical object that is not desired, you don't have to accept it. The outer mirror may show that you're accepting it, but internally, and remember, this is the Scorpio power, the internal realm, you do not have to accept it. And the inner acceptance is what matters. In this case, the inner plane holds the power. If somebody humiliates you or tries to put you down, and this happens all the time, or insult you, and we can learn from these things, but if your heart knows, I'm not going to accept it. I bless this person. I'm not going to accept it because I know the truth about me. And the truth is that I am the divine love. I am the intelligence. I am the wisdom of all beings and of all manifestations. I am that presence. Nothing that is negative can ever be absorbed. It can rub us a little bit, but the joy and bliss we have from holding that presence when we are being attacked is greater than anything we can imagine. It tickles our heart. We're just, to know that we can hold balance and love in the presence of attack is beautiful. However, don't confuse the attacks that are coming from within, which are our own, and we all have our own inner dark forces. Those attacks are the mirror of discord, the discord within us. And so if there's something we really need to heal, we're very judgmental, we're very critical, we will produce through, most often through our love relationship and through our sexual partner. That's why Taurus and Scorpio are so much about sexuality and mirroring through union in the physical. We'll mirror that in a human being that we're doing the alchemy with. And we'll get to see that, and we'll get to heal it and clear it. On the mass scale, in the collective, the whole world is the mirror of our collective inner wounds, patterns, and emotions that are not are emotions that have not yet been transmuted and put into the spiral of creation, the goddess spiral of divine love. Once we transmute them, all energy is power. I love to say this, it's the goddess's fuel is emotion, it's feeling. And so once we transmute those feelings, but our goal is to love and grow and know I am throughout the whole process. But the ultimate expression of the goddess is divine love. And the earth is taking an initiation in love. And so at this time, divine love, it's the age of the feminine and the solar feminine, the sacred fire of the Holy Spirit manifesting through divine love and the feeling force of divine love. Once we see our own mirror, and this is the key, and we'll finish on this note. Once we are able to see, this is profound. This is when we know, mind, heart, and will, that we are going to make it through this. We're going to do this. It's when we see our own dark. Seeing our own dark is both the most grueling, grinding, hard thing, but it's also the greatest gift that we can have. Now remember, most humans don't want to see their own dark. So when they see it, we blame, we judge. You're attacking me. I'm good. You're not. You're making my life miserable. You're the reason why nothing works. All these human things we have. We think somebody else is doing it. It takes a lot of spiritual maturity to understand that that person couldn't be acting in this way unless our mirror was resonant with that. And the fastest way to transmute it is to own it and see it and say, aha, I see you, and I see that you are the reflection of me. It's namaste. It is truly namaste. You are the mirror of me, and you and I are one. And when we know that, that light of consciousness becomes the magnifying glass of the magician, and it begins to transmute in the cauldron. All of those feelings become divine love. The divine sacred fire is working with the light of the sun through the magnifying glass, holding it up to it. These are the dark emotions. Here's the magnifying glass of consciousness of our presence and awareness and balance. Then the real alchemy starts happening. And we go through stages. We pedal a little forward, then we go back. We go a little forward, then we go back. But we're getting more momentum. The more momentum we have, we can just feel it because we're being uplifted. We're transmuting our power that's in Scorpio and changing the mirror in the Taurus moon so that we are reflecting the truth, which is I am the only intelligence acting on this planet. I am the only intelligence acting in humanity. I am the divine love that's waving through this planet, waving through the planet. And that being said, the full moon is a portal because it's right between the waxing and the waning moon. The waxing moon is the high priestess in the sacred tarot, key 2. The waning moon is key 18, the moon, the dark side of the moon, which represents waning into the dark. The shadow of humanity. When the moon is full, and I recommend if you're interested in this, get a timer, look it up. I don't have the exact moment here with me. At the moment of the high moon, prepare for an hour ahead of time. Purify yourself, purify your consciousness. That just means become present. Purity is presence. It doesn't mean we're good and bad and we've sinned and we have to make ourselves better. Purity is presence. Become present, become pure. And at that moment, when those energies line up, we can receive the inflow of divine love coming from the great central sun right now, the goddess's heart. That is the moment. The full moon is so profoundly sacred, and also Samhain, so sacred. At that moment, if we are present and we are in our I am, we will receive that light and our world will change. It will just change. Our words will change, our actions will change, and our mind will change. And so holding balance is more important than ever before. Yes, we need to get out our hate, our rage. Yes, we have to have our human moments, but we are striving to transmute those moments so that we can hold divine love like the Buddha, like the Christ, and like Magdalene, and like Kuan Yin, and like these goddess archetypes that represent balance and love. Also the goddess Mat, even Kali, even the destructive force that we think of, that everyone wants to say, no, look, the goddess is destructive, she has rage. It's a different frequency of rage. It's a transmuted power, and there's more to be said about that. We'll talk about her soon. So just taking a moment to call in the balance of I am, and through the balance, the angelic host are able to bring in the immortal power of divine love. The ascended host, our older brothers and sisters, which are only a part of our own being, and the archetypes of the gods and goddesses that work through the one light, the Christic force, are coming in, and they're spreading, and we all want to be a vehicle of that. And so we're doing the preparation to become the most profound vehicle that we can of the divine light. And so I wish everyone a very, very sacred, holy, and happy full moon, full supermoon in Taurus tomorrow. And I wish you a powerful Samhain and many, many, many blessings. And I will connect with you again soon. And remember to check out the Shannon Port channel for all of the videos and podcasts that I talked about. And also Art of the Feminine is a Facebook page and a website. I forget to say that sometimes, but stop by and check it out if you would like to discover a bit more about these teachings. And so until next time, I send you many, many blessings.